Good evening, folks. I'm your host, Raj Singh, and you're watching the weekly podcast. Along with me, I have my co host.
Gurtej Atwal.
Thank you, Gritej, for being with me today. And we are doing our podcast to cover East Coast side, city of Queens from New York. And we have a special guest, Jaslene Kaur, who is running for a city of Queens council. And she's our first South Asian youngest woman that is going to be on the ballot for this upcoming elections in June. So we are here today to know who Jaslene Kaur is. So welcome, Jaslene, and thank you so much for being with us tonight to share your journey and share about yourself and to connect with the voters. So the platform is yours. Please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, y'all. I'm really excited to be here, tell you a little bit about the platform, how I got to this, to throwing my hat into the ring, and discuss really what's really on the plate for our next election on June 22nd for City Council.
Great. So let's start with knowing a little about who Jaslene Kaur is. So who are you, Jaslene?
Who am I? Yeah, so my name is Jaslene Kaur. I'm a candidate for New York City Council in District 23, way out on the east side of Queens of New York City. And I'm someone who is born and bred of my community. It's an honor to really run for the same community and the same neighbors to represent the people who raised me, the people who are my teachers, the people who are my grocery store clerks, the people who make the fabric of this community right here in Eastern Queens. And so I grew up in our public school system. I'm a really proud graduate of community college, of our massive public school system called CUNY at Hunter College. And for me, I really hold dear my identity as the daughter of Sikh Punjabi immigrants who came here in the early 90s, planted roots here, and are excited to build this campaign right alongside me. My parents are part of the campaign as well. They're with me in this fight to really bring forward so many of the deeply necessary changes that our city has needed even well before the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think as an organizer, as an activist, as somebody who has spent so many years working at the city, state, and federal level, these are the kinds of minds that we need to bring into elected office. So for me, I spent a number of years working in education equity to end gender discrimination and gender-based violence within our K through 12 schools and in our colleges and universities. And I spent a long time trying to advocate for so many of our immigrant families who really needed the kinds of policies that secure the right to citizenship and secure the right to healthcare as well.
Thank you very much, Jaslene. So you born and brought up here, you had your schooling, and you're well aware of the multicultural environment that is around your district. It is one of the multi-generational as well as a multicultural Queens district, District 23, that you are going to represent if you get elected, gets an opportunity. So what is the triggering point? What kinds of issues while growing up in this district that made you feel that I have to run for this office?
Yeah, even people who aren't from New York City know that Queens is the center of the world. We have perhaps the most diverse borough in the entire country and in the entire world, because this is a melting pot of so many immigrant communities who settled here to build out their own enclaves, right? We have a little India, a little Punjab right in our district too, and that's so special for people like my parents who needed to build that community, needed to find a place that feels like home away from home. And I think that's why a lot of people choose to stay in New York City. For me, I think that for a long time, as someone who grew up here, saw how our city was shifting and changing, I often saw it changing for the wrong reasons, right? So one of the things that really prompted me to run for office was around the taxi medallion crisis here in New York City. So my father has been a taxi driver for almost 30 years now. He's going into his senior years, is still driving. I just came back from a shift a few hours ago. And for him, that job economy really just suffered so much back in 2014 when major corporations like Uber and Lyft came into our city to really undermine the taxi medallion industry that was valued to be close to $1 million. And that was the kind of investment a lot of working class immigrant families wanted to invest in. if I get a taxi medallion, I can own my own vehicle, make my own hours. I'm a small business owner and I can put my kids through school. I can put down a mortgage to get a home and really settle and really plant my roots here in New York City. But when Uber and Lyft came in and when the medallion brokers inflated the market, that market eventually crashed. And the lack of city oversight, the lack of state policy to keep our working people thriving and giving them the economic stability was just not there. The policy wasn't there to protect our families. So even to this day, 7 years after the fact, we're still dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And I have fellow city council candidates who are going through the same boat right now. Families in my neighborhood who have had to sell their homes because they can't afford to live in Queens anymore. And so I think if we're looking to build economic stability, to really make sure that we can protect and give people permanent housing and economic opportunity for the rest of their lives, I want to be able to do that in City Hall. And I want to be able to serve the people who desperately need an avenue for a dignified life.
Well, thank you, Jocelyn. I think this is a really, really major and crucial point for anybody who's like not just immigrant, but any working class family, because I believe a lot of people, it doesn't need to be their immigrant, they must be driving taxis as it's one of the greatest business, like you said, in the New York side. And they were relying heavily on their retirements for their kids, schooling, or for marriages, or help them out, even though in different life phases, right?
Right.
And like you said, when the big corporation kicked in, it was a major financial impact on them. And I'm glad that you are actually stepping into this to look into it, because end of the day, doesn't matter. You can talk as much as you can sitting outside. What really is going to change? It's the policy making decision holders. They are going to put this in the law. And you are looking into that. And we are very honored and glad that at such a young age, you are looking into these things. You looked up to your dad, how such a hardworking person, like you said, he just got back from his shift. And probably millions of other people are like that same way. Right. So that's one of the issues that you addressed with or shared with us. What other issues at the District 23rd that you're running for that you think they needs to be addressed, and you are going to address them, and how, and what are some challenges and solutions to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as the children of immigrants, so many of us carry the burdens of our elders, right? And this is, again, Gurtej, to your point, this is a multi-generational fight. This is all of us working together, because when we build collective power, then we'll get the wins that we need at every stage of government. And so, part of that intergenerational fight is really taking care of so many of our seniors and elders in District 23. So we actually have one of the largest senior populations in the entire city, well over 20%. And we are also, unfortunately, the home of the largest number of nursing home deaths in the entire city as well. Right here, about 119 people we lost because our governor wasn't transparent about the data we needed to actually keep our nursing home residents safe. And so for me, I was also a caretaker for my grandmother before she passed 2 or 3 years ago. And it was so important for me because I was often the only person who could speak Punjabi in the hospitals, right? Or else they would have to phone a translator in. And, I think these kinds of expanding bilingual care for many of our seniors, expanding home care services, expanding pay rates and care services for many of the home caretakers as well. These are the kinds of services that we really need to expand in District 23 because we have such an older population out here. So I think, that's definitely one. That's something I hear a lot from voters on the ground as well, that they're not sure how their grandparents can continue to live by themselves in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. It's incredibly dangerous. I think something else that's really deeply important citywide and in this district is the right to permanent housing. We are coming up on one of the largest eviction and moratorium crises we could ever see in the city because we can't cancel rent, we can't cancel mortgages. And, I don't want to see more of my neighbors displaced. I want people to continue to live here with the right to housing that's unabated, that is going to secure the right and expand opportunities for homeownership, support our renters, give them the kinds of right to counsel that they need in the city. And there's just so much we can do with the policy to maintain that here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jocelyn. So this COVID, it will change the lens or change the views as you are seeing your district. So you may have seen lots of disruptions. And what kind of challenges do you see in the near future if you get an opportunity to be in the council with respect to COVID? So what are your plans to tackle those?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to campaign in the middle of a pandemic, right? Our voter contact is so compromised, right? Because we are double masked every time we go outside. We are trying to maintain the safety of our volunteers. And the job of a city council member is often to provide those most local services, talk to the city agencies to help you pay your taxes, to help you make sure that you can send your kids to the right public school and they're getting the right resources that we need. So it feels a little less interpersonal. It feels like a little bit more distant. And so I think for myself as an organizer, it's my duty to work above those hurdles, right? To still bring communities together. Part of that is online. Part of that is fostering community in person. But I think another one of the really unfortunate, challenges to this COVID-19 pandemic is that so many people have just lost their jobs, have lost really important landmarks in the community. And much of that is for our immigrant and family-owned small businesses. So I walk up and down so many of the, really busy streets in our district, and there are so many businesses that have shuttered up and may never open up again unless we provide really salient economic relief. So there's a really important set of legislation that we can propose that would offer commercial rent stabilization and commercial rent relief for so many of our businesses. And many of them are paying about $5,000 to $10,000 of rent every single month just to stay open, not even to run an income, right? Not even to pay their staff, just to keep the business front open. So I think these kinds of meaningful policies are really going to help us bring us out of this pandemic.
Yeah, no, from this, Jocelyn, it seems like a city council has a lot more responsibility than somebody
Yeah.
kind of sees from the outside or envisions it, like their full control of this jurisdiction, how that is impacting their students or that is impacting the employees,
Right.
businesses, and everything. So can you share the structure of your District 23? So what is the structure of the council? How many council members? And what are the key roles and responsibilities you will be playing if you get an opportunity to be a council member?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked because I get this question all the time from voters. I'll introduce myself. I'll say, "Hi, my name is Jasleen. I'm a Democrat who's running for city council." And they say, "Okay." They'll look over the information for a little bit and then they'll say, "That's great, but what's a city council? I don't know what they do." And I think that's a two-part question, right? Because one, a lot of people often don't vote or don't see a purpose in voting. And two, the elected officials are often not in the community, aren't actually talking to people about what the issues are and what their job description actually is. Because this is what it is, right? Running for political office, you're interviewing for a job every single day that you talk to a voter, right? And so the city council right now is comprised of about 51 districts, 51 council members, so one per district. And one of the most important duties as a city council member is negotiating, at least in the past year, a $92 billion budget that's proposed with our mayor. So we're often working with our city mayor right now, it's Bill de Blasio, to try to negotiate this budget to decide where are we spending these billions of dollars. And much of that, the majority of the last budget was actually allocated towards social services, to police, and to the education sector. So it's a moment for us to really work with our other council members, see what the needs are in each of our districts, but not only just citywide spending, but also district-specific spending. So we get an allocation of a certain amount of funds to do capital projects. Maybe it's to renovate a playground that's in the district. Right now, there's a really exciting one to expand a greenway, to connect bike lanes that move across so many of the parks in the district as well. And that's a really important fight because we're also looking at land use. So land use decisions really look at how are we using plots of land, whether they're vacant lots or development areas, to build more affordable housing. Can we build another school to ease overcrowding in many of our public schools in New York City? These are the kinds of hyper-local decisions that I would have to make as a council member that really takes strong constituent services, plus good legislation, plus allocating so much money to really make our city far more equitable.
Thank you, Jesseline. And I would have wanted to touch on something more in a summarized way. So if somebody needs to remember you and what Jesseline Kaur is running for as a council member, what are your top 5 priorities that you would be working if you get elected?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, overall, for me, I think what's really important and what has led me to run for office in the first place is that nobody knows policy better than the people who have been failed by it, right? And that's clearly my experience and my family's experience with the taxi crisis. And so I think that we need to bring people forward and expand civic engagement in this district. That's absolutely one. I think we need to expand our community boards who also work under a city council and boost youth representation and youth engagement in how we handle local politics. I think that's just a project of recruiting young people to really be involved in their local districts. I think number 2 is definitely around housing and securing the right to permanent housing for so many people, especially under the current mayorship. We've seen an increase of homelessness, over 50,000 people across our city who are homeless and don't have somewhere to live permanently. So I think that's definitely number 2. 3 is definitely around economic stability and making sure that we're providing economic relief packages at the city level for so many immigrants and working people who don't qualify for federal or state relief. So I think that's definitely number 3. Number 4 is definitely around public transportation. So for my district, we are a transit desert. We do not have any subway stations, and everyone always thinks of the subway and the MTA as a thing that signifies New York, that's so special to us. We don't have that in my district. We rely on really subpar bus systems, and that's a situation of accessibility. That's a problem of poor urban planning. So I think expanding those opportunities in the district is really paramount. And then number 5, I think, is really just taking care of our elders and really expanding opportunities for health access in this city. There's so many people who are uninsured, don't have the opportunity to get the kind of care that they need to make sure that they can continue to do their jobs, take care of their families. So I think this really rounds out so many of the priorities that are really going to be critical for any new council member in the next year.
Great. Thank you for sharing your plan with us, and I will hand it back to Ritesh if you have anything to add on.
Yeah, so Jesseline, if somebody wants to learn more about you, so how they can do the research, and if they have any questions, so how they can reach out to you for the clarifications.
Yeah, so, given the troubles of the pandemic, so much of our work is now online. You can actually log on to our website at jaslinekaur.nyc. That's JASLINKAUR.NYC. There you can sign up to our email newsletter to get continuous updates about what we're doing and how we're moving on the campaign trail. You can also email us at info@jaslinekaur.nyc to talk to us directly, talk to our campaign, and get to know how you can get involved. On our webpage, you'll also find out ways to get involved and volunteer for the campaign. So because we're digital, there's so many opportunities where if you can't be in the field with us in the district, you can also call our neighbors. We host phone banks almost every night of the week. We're always looking for people, no matter if you have the experience or not, to join us. We'll train you, we'll bring you into the fold, because we believe that this isn't just about politics. This is about public service and expanding the pipeline of young people who can come into office and really expand opportunities for us to lead collectively and bring people together in city council.
No, thank you very much, Jesseline. We highly encourage the voters to learn about the candidates and do register for vote. And please do vote on June 22nd to elect the candidate which meets your criteria or which can represent you better. So Jesseline, will you please share something with your audience so how they will remember Jesseline?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I really deeply believe that politics at the most local level is how we engage our communities, is how we bring forward the kinds of changes that we've needed for several years. I think for myself, as somebody who is born and raised of the community, someone who is here to serve the people, something that's really special to this campaign alone is that we're entirely grassroots. We're not funded by corporate interests. We're not funded by big real estate. We're not funded by large dollar donors. In fact, we have over 1,000 donors just in this small city council race, and our average donation is just $31. And a fifth of our donor base is actually unemployed, which means that the working people, the people who are excluded out of our city, are the ones who trust me to be the one to bring us forward in city council. And we're bringing together a diverse coalition of people, right? As the daughter of Sikh Punjabi immigrants, I'm not just fighting for my own community. I'm fighting for the diversity of our entire city, the diversity of Queens, and the diversity of my district too, because it takes a multi-general, multiracial, multi-ethnic coalition of people who are going to bring us together. And I think that's really what we need at the end of the day to make sure that every single voice is heard in City Hall.
Thank you so much for sharing your time, energy, and we totally see a passion in you, and we wish you a good luck. And hopefully we'll connect with you in June again. And again, once again, to all the listeners, if you have any question, you can direct to us, or you can directly reach out to Jasleen on her given contact information. And thank you for watching and being with us tonight. Thank you.